I need to be direct with you with something. And I need you to hear this without the filter of anyone else's voice. And without the noise of your notifications, without the hum of the TV on the background, without any of the 1,000 little distractions that have been carefully placed in your path to keep you from this exact moment. Because what I'm about to say to you isn't something that can land properly if you are half listening, if you are scrolling, if you are doing that thing where your eyes are here but your beautiful mind is already 3 tasks ahead, already calculating what you need to do tomorrow. That list, to-do list, already replaying that conversation from yesterday that still hasn't resolved itself in your chest. This requires your full presence, the kind of presence you haven't given anything in a long time, maybe longer than you are willing to admit. And I know that sounds dramatic, but the truth is you have been avoiding presence for a while now, filling every quiet space with noise, with activity, with the endless scroll, and with everything, with anything actual that keeps you from sitting alone with what's actually happening inside you, with yourself, You have been feeling it, haven't you? That strange sensation that you are lying in 2 different realities simultaneously. There is the one everyone else sees, the one where you show up and do the things and say the right words and appear to be handling everything with grace and competence. And then there is the other one, the one that exists beneath the surface, the one where something feels fundamentally off, like you are wearing clothes that don't quite fit anymore, like you are walking through your own life as a stranger. As a stranger who happens to know all the routines but doesn't actually belong there. You have been feeling like you are holding your breath, waiting for someone or for something you cannot name, watching everyone around you move through their days while you feel increasingly disconnected, increasingly invisible, increasingly like you are watching a movie of your own life instead of actually living it. And here is what's been happening that you might not have noticed, or maybe you have noticed but haven't allowed yourself to fully acknowledge it. The people closest to you have been responding to something in you that they cannot quite identify. Conversations that used to flow easily now feel strained, like there is an invisible wall between you that wasn't there before. You catch people looking at you differently with a kind of uncertainty, like they are trying to figure out who you have become or what's changed. Maybe you have been feeling like everyone is pulling away, creating distance that you cannot explain or bridge, leaving you standing in the middle of your own life, feeling abandoned even when you are surrounded by people. And the worst part is that you have started to believe the explanation that keeps presenting itself in your quietest moments. The explanation that whispers you are being excluded because something is wrong with you. That people are pulling away because they see something in you that disqualifies you. That the isolation you are feeling is evidence of your inadequacy. But what if that explanation is completely backwards? What if the distance you are feeling isn't rejection, but preparation? Think about that. What if the silence that surrounds you isn't emptiness, but sanctuary? Yeah. What if the very isolation that feels so painful is actually the most loving thing that could be happening to you right now? Not because you deserve it to be alone, but because there is something that can only be communicated to you when the room is cleared of all other voices. Think about the moments when you have received the most important messages in your life. Were they delivered in a crowded room with 20 other people talking over each other? Were they delivered while you were distracted, scrolling, half present? I think no. The messages that changed your life, changed you, came when there was space, when there was quiet, when you were actually able to hear what was being said without the interference of 1,000 other things competing for your attention. And that's what's been happening to you, whether you have recognized it or not. You have been in a season of stripping away, a season where things that used to feel essential are falling away, where people who used to be constants are becoming distant, where the activities that used to fill your days no longer hold any meaning. And you have been interpreting this as loss, as failure, as evidence that something is broken in you or around you. But what if this isn't loss at all? What if this is the removal of everything that was blocking you from receiving what's actually yours? You cannot receive something new with your hands already full. You cannot hear a new direction with your ears already filled with everyone else's expectations. You cannot step into who you really are, who you are becoming, while you are still trying to maintain who you used to be. Now, we need to go deeper because there is where it gets uncomfortable. There is a reason you have been so available to everyone else, so responsive, so reliable, so present for every crisis and every request and every need that anyone has brought to you. And that reason actually isn't as noble as you might want to believe. A part of you has drawn a sense of identity, of worth, of validation from being the person everyone trusts, everyone turns to when things fall apart. Being the shoulder, being the solution, being the one who always knows what to say and what to do, being indispensable. There is a secret satisfaction in that role, a satisfaction that has sadly invisible been keeping you trapped. Yeah, because if you are everyone else's solution, you never have to face your own questions. If you are always solving other people's problems, you never have to confront your own. If your worth is wrapped up in your utility to others, you never have to discover your worth independent of what you can do for anyone. And here is the hardest truth. the one that's been operating beneath your conscious awareness of for longer than you know, a part of you that has been afraid of your own power, not the power to control or to dominate, but the power that comes from stepping fully into who you actually are, into what you are actually designed to carry, into the specific unrepeatable assignment that belongs to you and no one else, because that kind of power carries responsibility. That kind of power means standing out, being visible, being seen in a way that you cannot hide from. That kind of power means you can no longer blame your circumstances or your relationships or your lack of time or your obligations to others for why you haven't stepped forward. That kind of power means you become accountable for the gift that's been placed inside you. And that accountability is terrifying. I know that it's terrifying. It's easier to stay small, to stay helpful, to stay needed, to stay invisible behind the needs of everyone else. It's easier to let other people's emergencies become your perpetual excuse for why you haven't moved forward. It's easier to let their needs define your your days, so you never have to face what you might actually be called to do. But the season you are in, the season of strange silence and strange distance and strange solitude, that season is God's way of dismantling every single excuse you have been hiding behind. This is clearing the room of every voice that isn't His, every demand that isn't yours, every burden that was never meant for you, for your shoulders. And He is doing this not because He wants you to be alone, but because there is something He needs to tell you that requires your undivided attention. There is a conversation that needs to happen between you and Him that cannot happen while you are distracted by 100 other voices. There is an assignment that needs to be given to you that cannot be received while you are carrying the weight of everyone else's assignments. There is a version of you that needs to be born that cannot come forth while you are still trying to maintain the version of you that was never supposed to be permanent. Yeah. And this brings us to the thing you've been experiencing most accurately. The thing that has probably caused you the most confusion and pain. The relationships that have felt distant. The people who have been pulling away. The sense that you have become stronger in your own life. That's not happening because you are losing people. That's happening because the spiritual atmosphere around you is shifting. And the people who are not meant to be part of what's coming are simply responding to the shift, to that shift. They are not rejecting you consciously. No, they are responding to a frequency they cannot identify. A vibration that they don't understand. A version of you that doesn't hit into their established expectations. And they are pulling away, not because something is wrong with you, but because something is so right about what's happening to you that it's making them uncomfortable. the version of you that's emerging, the version of you, the version you can feel pressing against the boundaries of who you have been, that version is not compatible with the relationships that were built around the old version. And that's not a loss, even though it feels like one, yeah. That's making room. Think about this honestly. How many of your relationships were built around you being the one who gives and gives and gives, the one who supports, the one who listens, the one who's always available? How many of your connections were actually depend on your willingness to neglect your own needs in favor, not yours, in favor of everyone else's? How many people are in your life because of what you do for them rather than who you actually are? And what happens to those relationships when you stop being that person? What happens when you start stepping into your own assignment instead of carrying everyone else's? That's really hard questions to think, yeah. What happens when you say no instead of yes? When you prioritize your own direction instead of constantly responding to everyone else's emergencies? What happens? Yeah, what happens when you are when you are no longer so useful? And here is the question you've been avoiding. The question that's been sitting in the quiet places you have been so busy feeling. What if the people who leave when you stop being useful were never actually there for you in the first place? What if the relationships that cannot survive your transformation were never relationships at all, but transactions? Yeah. What if the distance you are feeling is actually the natural response of relationships that were built on the wrong foundation, relationships that were designed for the version of you that's dying, relationship that cannot and should not continue into the version of you that's being born? That's really hard questions, yeah. And now I need you to understand something about this season. This season of isolation, of stripping away, of feeling like you are suspended between who you were and who you are becoming. This season is not permanent. It's not your destination. It's your transition. Yeah, you are in the cocoon phase, and cocoons are supposed to feel dark and confined and silent and confusing. That's the point, actually. Inside the cocoon, the caterpillar literally dissolves before it reforms into something entirely new. And if the caterpillar could experience its own transformation, it would feel like death. It would feel like everything it had ever known was being taken away. It would feel like it was losing itself completely. And it would feel like, like a death. And it would be right. The caterpillar does die. And something entirely new is born. And you right now are in the dissolution phase. The version of you that was built around being everyone else's solution, around seeking validation through utility, around hiding your own power behind a mask of helpfulness. That version is dissolving. And it feels like you are losing yourself, because you are. But what's coming is not loss. What's coming is birth. And here's the part you need to hear. The part that might change or challenge you more than anything else I've said before. You have been afraid of this transformation, not consciously perhaps, but at a deeper level, the level that actually determines your behavior. You have been unconsciously resisting this because you know what it costs. You know what it requires. You know what stepping into who you actually are means, letting go of who you have been pretending to be. It means no longer having the excuse of other people's needs to hide behind. It means no longer being able to deflect your own calling by pointing at everyone else's crisis. It means no longer being able to say, I don't have time, I don't have capacity, I'm too busy with everyone else's things. So the season you are in has stripped all of that away. The isolation has removed the distractions, the distance has removed the demands, and you are left alone with the one question you've been avoiding your entire life. Who are you when you are not needed by anyone else? Not one question. Who are you when you are not responding to anyone else's emergencies? Who are you when the room is quiet and the phone is silent and no one is looking to you, for anything? And the answer to that question is the thing you have been running from, because that answer requires you to face yourself, to face your own desires, needs, and fears, and gifts, and callings, to face the terrifying reality that you are accountable for what you have been given, that you cannot blame your circumstances or your obligations any longer. This is why you needed to be alone. Not because you've done something wrong. No. Not because you are being punished. Not because you are excluded or rejected or unloved. You needed to be alone because you cannot be who you are supposed to be while you are surrounded by everyone who wants you to stay who you have been. You cannot receive what's coming while your hands are full of what's past. You cannot hear the voice that's calling you while your ears are filled with the demands of everyone else. The room had to be cleared. The noise had to be silenced. The distractions had to be removed. And not because you deserve to suffer, but because you deserve to receive. And you cannot receive with your hands full. Once again, you cannot be filled while you are still pouring out. You cannot step into your future while you are still carrying the weight of your past. So, my beautiful souls, this is what I want you to do right now. Wherever you are, stop scanning ahead to the next task. Stop thinking about what you are going to say to the person who interrupted you earlier. Stop rehearsing the conversation you need to have tomorrow. Stop calculating how you are going to fix whatever's broken in someone else's life. I need you to be completely here, completely present, completely available to what's happening in this moment. And I need you to really feel what's been happening inside you. Yeah. The exhaustion that you have pushing through, the loneliness that you have been numbing, the anger that you have been suppressing, the grief that you have been ignoring, the hope that you have been afraid to admit, all of it, the whole tangled mess of what you have been avoiding. It's been accumulating in the quiet spaces of your heart, and it's been speaking to you whether you have been listening or not. And it's been telling you that the truth, telling you the truth that you have been too afraid to hear, that you cannot keep doing this, that the way you have been living isn't sustainable, that something has to change, that you are on the verge of something you cannot even name, and that the only way through it is to actually go through it, not around it, not over it, not distracting yourself from it, but through it, with your eyes open, with your heart exposed, with nothing left to hide behind. This is your moment. This is the moment you've been prepared for. The moment you didn't know you were waiting for. The moment that every conversation you've had to have alone, every silence you've had to sit in, every relationship that's falling away, every distraction that's been stripping from you, they have all been building toward this. You didn't stumble into this moment. You were guided here, not by accident, not by coincidence, not by the algorithm or the clock or the random unfolding of events. You were led here because you are ready, even if you don't feel ready, even if you are scared, even if you have no idea what comes next. You are ready because you have been prepared. And the preparation has been the hardest thing you have ever done. And now the preparation is complete. The stripping away is done. The silence has served its purpose. The distance has done its work. And what's left? Yeah, you are asking what's left. What's left is you, stripped of all the layers you have been hiding behind, standing in the truth of who you actually are, who you've always been, but were too afraid to become. One more thing, and I need you to feel the weight of that. Yeah, who you've been always been, not who you have been pretending to be, not who you have been trying to become, not who you thought you should be or who others expected you to be. Who you have always been, the version of you that existed before all the expectations and obligations and performances, the version of you that knew what it wanted, that knew what it was here for, that knew its own name before the world told you what you should be called. The version of you, that version of you hasn't died. That version of you has been waiting in the quiet, waiting in the silence, waiting in the space that was cleared. And now that space is empty, and that silence is complete, and that version of you is already ready to step forward. And when you step forward, when you actually let that version of you speak, when you actually let that version of you lead, the whole dynamic of your life changes. The people who were built for the old version of you will either adjust or they will leave. The structures that were designed for the old version of you will either expand or they will break. The patterns, of course, the patterns that were created around the old version of you will either transform or they will dissolve. None of that is your problem to solve. None of that is your responsibility to manage. Your responsibility is to be who you actually are. To stop hiding, to stop dimming your light, to stop making yourself small so other people could feel big. Your responsibility is to step fully into the version of yourself that you have been avoiding, and to trust that whatever falls away in the process was never meant to stay. So listen to me. The season of preparation is complete. Everything you have been through, every loss, every silence, every moment of isolation and confusion and grief, it's all been leading to this moment. And this moment is not the end. This moment is the beginning. This is the moment you step forward. Not with certainty about where you are going, because you don't have that yet. Not with clarity about every step, because that hasn't been revealed yet. But with absolute knowledge that you cannot stay where you have been, that you cannot be who you have been, that you cannot keep carrying what you have been carrying. You step forward with nothing but trust, with nothing but the conviction that what's been prepared for you is better, much better than you are leaving behind, with nothing but the willingness to fully, without reservation or excuse, become who you were always meant to be. And when you do, everything else will fall into place. Not because you have fixed anything, but because you have finally stopped fixing and started living. Not because you have solved everything, but because you finally stopped solving everyone else's problems and started facing your own life. Not because you have become who everyone wanted you to be, but because you have finally become who you were always supposed to be. You have been alone, so you could hear this. You've been in the quiet, so you could receive this. You've been stripped of these distractions, so you could finally see what's been in front of you the whole time. And now you see it, and you cannot unsee it. Yeah. And that's exactly where you need to be. So take a breath, put your hand on your chest, and feel your heartbeat. Feel how alive you still are, how much life is still in you, how much more you have been designed to carry. And know that everything you've been through, every moment of isolation, every silence that felt like abandonment, every door that closed, every person who pulled away, it was all making a room for what's coming. And what's coming is so much bigger than what's leaving. The season of preparation is complete. The silence has served its purpose. The room has been cleared. And now you step forward into the life that was always meant to be yours. Not because you have earned it, not because you have done everything right. No, but because you have been prepared for it. Because you are ready for it. Because the version of you that's been waiting to emerge is finally here. And there is nothing left standing in the way.